Welcome back to Chapter 3 of Beyond the Table. I am so grateful for all of the support that has been given for this series, and I am so happy that so many of you have enjoyed it. If you haven't watched the previous 2 chapters, make sure to catch those first. Much like the last chapter, I will try to avoid most campaign spoilers, but there will be 1 or 2 major ones that I will have to include when talking about the players. So if you know nothing about Campaign 2, this is your spoiler warning now. Originally, this episode was supposed to cover all of Campaign 2. I decided to break it down into a couple episodes, however, because in doing research, I found out that the group had accomplished a lot more than I even realized. So I wanted to get this episode out as quickly as possible, so this episode will include the year of 2018, the first year of their second campaign. I know this has been a long-awaited chapter, so I'm going to get right into it. But first, I just want to thank all of my amazing Patreons. So, thank you, Sandra, the Dread Donzarian, Marnie, Joe, Molly, Ernest, Alexander, Alan, Slarty Bartfast, Lucy, Erica, Aaron, and Abby. Thank you so much. You are all amazing and make this all possible and worth it. If you would like to join this amazing community and help support me in this work, you can head over to my Patreon. Another thing I'd like to mention before we dive into today's chapter is that Critical Role has recently taken down their Talksmachina episodes and other interviews of the cast, most likely due to circumstances surrounding Brian W. Foster, and trying to distance themselves from him in the current situation. And I completely support them in that decision. However, because of that, there will be some videos that I don't have access to, and can't include in this episode as I discuss the group's events. But I'll try to use what I have and what is most important to the story while still respecting the cast's wishes to support their friend. And there still will be times where I will talk about Brian's involvement with the cast on certain projects since he did play a role in many of them, but I will try to be as sensitive about the topic as I can be. Much love and best wishes to the Critical Role family, and please remember to be respectful and loving to one another. And that is all the announcements I have. So, with that, let's get into Chapter 3, a mighty chapter. By the end of 2017, Critical Role had become an internet sensation. Thousands of people would join them on Thursday nights to watch their game live, and thousands more would catch the YouTube upload of the session the following Monday. When the first campaign came to an end, the group expressed exactly how the audience felt.
Let's do it again.
And that they did. But before they began their new journey, there were some big events that took place on their brief hiatus from a campaign. As we have discussed previously, the group took a break by having some fun one-shots for a couple months. And although their channel took more of a relaxing break, the players definitely didn't. During this time, Matthew and Marisha got married and were on their honeymoon while the other players did one-shots. So this meant that we would be starting the next campaign with a congratulations to the newly wedded couple. Several members of the group held a Talksmachina fireside on January 4th, mainly to address any questions that may have gotten skipped over in the Campaign 1 wrap-up, and to talk about their upcoming campaign, which aired on January 11, 2018. There was a lot of excitement for this campaign for multiple reasons. This was a big change since we had never seen these players consistently play a new character, and many were nervous and excited to see how these new characters acted and interacted. This campaign also gave many people a chance to start watching Critical Role without having to watch a backlog of 115 episodes that ranged from 3 to 5 hours. And with that mindset, the group prepared to launch their second campaign. On January 11th, 2018, Campaign 2 begins. We start off with a warm welcome back to the show, followed by an introduction of sponsors. The first sponsor mentioned is Backblaze, followed by the group's appreciation for Wormwood's support by showing off the new table they made for them. And they also thanked Warner Brothers and CD Projekt Red for allowing them to incorporate music from the soundtracks for Middle-earth, Shadow of War, and The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt into their campaign. They once again showed their support for 826LA, and then finally announced a new long-term partner and sponsor, D&D Beyond, an online tool that they use to make their characters, magic items, and organize their campaign, to which they continue to use for years to come. After the sponsor announcements, we get a first look at their new intro, with a retro comedic style introducing each player in their legendary 70s themed outfits. This intro had a reimagined version of their theme song, once again created by Jason Charles Miller, as well as a large production team that the group credited afterwards. With this new intro, they also released a limited time poster that you could order of the group in all of their gloriously nerdy outfits. And with that, they began Campaign 2. It was very exciting and had some remnants of their very first episode. The group was shy and giddy, spending a lot of the first episode just goofing around as they got to know each other's new characters. However, there was one major difference between this and their very first episode, and that was the amount of people sharing this experience with them. This episode was recorded with over 120,000 people watching it. It was a very high energy episode and a brand new experience for everyone, watching them start with level 2 characters which completely changed the dynamic and gameplay that everyone was so used to. Overall, it was a strong start, and many people immediately fell in love with the group's new characters, and that would continue on throughout the campaign. The story began to build weekly, and everyone had their opinions of the new characters, both good and bad, as we watched them interact and grow. We got to see new relationships, new attitudes, and a lot of new stories, and this was fun. But something else fun we got very early on was our first guest star of this campaign, Kari Payton, a successful actor and voice actor, known for roles such as King Ezekiel in The Walking Dead and Cyborg in many animated series. Guest stars in Critical Role have some very memorable moments throughout the show and have contributed greatly to the campaigns. And I regret not covering enough of the guest stars in Critical Role's first campaign, to which I will update and fix in the final documentary. So look forward to that. Anyway, Kari joined the group during the 7th episode on February 22nd, 2018, playing Shikasta, an older, blind, and very smooth cleric. He helped the party progress their story and then went on his way, leaving a memorable performance behind him. With the very next episode on March 1st, we got some huge news from Laura and Travis. They were expecting their first child, due in July. This news had been hinted at since the Grog one-shot at the end of 2017, but it wasn't until this episode that the news was confirmed. The cast were all very excited to welcome the newest critter to the family, and with their announcement, the couple also released an adorable character sheet for their baby. This episode also introduced us to the party's new name,
The Mighty Nein.
as a reference to them saying no to many things as a party, but in German, or in this world, Zemnian, Liam's character's language. It was more of a subtle name, but it came with many instances of funny character interactions due to the party mainly consisting of only 7 members, instead of the 9 that they accidentally implied with this name. Along with the campaign's defining name, the start of Critical Recap began wrapping up the month of March. Danny Carr had begun to transition from Critical Role production coordinator to lore keeper for the group. She kept track of events that happened within the campaign and essentially became the historian of their fantasy world, Exandria. With this knowledge, Danny started Critical Recap, where she would recap the events of what happened during each episode of the campaign, so that people could easily stay up to date with the story. At the beginning of April, the group had an interview with Sci-Fi Wire in Chicago at a comic expo, where they got to talk about their second campaign with a live audience. At the end of May, the group brought in another guest star, Mark Hulmes, playing Callie, a notable Dungeons & Dragons content creator with his own channel, as well as being a DM for High Rollers on YouTube. Mark played a very memorable dragon bloodline sorcerer who left a positive impression on many viewers. While the start of the new campaign was huge, along with the fact that Travis and Laura's baby was on the way, the second half of 2018 was packed with announcements, changes, and numerous events. In June, Critical Role announced some huge news. They would be moving to their own studio to produce more content by themselves. This move would happen at the beginning of July, and with this announcement came a few more changes. The first being that Critical Role now had taken complete control of their own merchandise, moving to their own official website, critroll.com. They now had full control and could do and make whatever merchandise they wanted, and started off by releasing their first Mighty Nein t-shirt. Another announcement they made was that Marisha Ray would be stepping down as creative director at Geek & Sundry, to focus on Critical Role and their content more. And all of these announcements came with Critical Role starting their own YouTube and Twitch channels, where they would be posting and streaming in addition to Geek & Sundry. These announcements were followed shortly on their own channel with an announcement on their partnership with Steamforged to start a Kickstarter for miniatures for their campaign's characters. This Kickstarter ended with over 20,000 backers and earned over $1 million. With so many changes and so much community support, these announcements were a massive indicator of the promise that the company's future held. Later that month, on June 28th, we get our first episode without Travis and Laura, as their new son Ronan was born just earlier that day, which was rather poetically on a Thursday. Though Ronan was born a little sooner than expected, Matthew had prepared a way within the story to allow them and their characters to be absent. Ashley was also scheduled to leave the following episode to return to filming on Blind Spot, an NBC show she had been a part of since its start in 2015. With 3 members of the group gone, there was room for some guest stars, and we got several. To start, episode 26 aired on July 12, 2018, 2 weeks after the last because in between, the group had moved to their new studio. During this episode, the group welcomed Ashley Birch to the table, playing Keg. Ashley Birch is an actress, writer, and producer, known for roles such as Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn, Tiny Tina from Borderlands, and Chloe Price in Life is Strange, among many others. She helped fill the table since so many players were missing and stayed with the group for the next several episodes. The following session, episode 27, introduced Nyla, played by Sumali Montano, another on-screen and voice actress known for The Lost Symbol and Ghost of Tsushima. However, due to unfortunate events involving Talison's character Mollymock the week previous, he was not in this episode either, leaving a small group of 5 at the table. Following this episode, we saw the return of Talison, now playing Caduceus Clay, a Firbolg cleric. There were 6 players back at the table, building up to the return of the rest of the party and preparing for their first live show of Campaign 2. Which was scheduled for the first week of August in Indianapolis for Gen Con. This live show was different from anything we had seen before though, due to the fact that we are still missing 3 players. But we did get to see Laura and Travis shortly via FaceTime, so the critters could wish Travis a happy birthday before starting the live game. This live show was a new experience for everyone, since for the first time, we had short-term guest star Ashley Birch on stage with the rest of the cast playing live in front of an audience. But she wasn't the only one. During this episode, Shikasta, played by Kari Payton once more, surprisingly returned. It was a super exciting episode that brought a satisfying climax to the mini-story arc that Matt had prepared. The live show ended the steady stream of guest stars as Laura and Travis returned for episode 30 on August 9th, their first time back since becoming new parents. During those busy summer months filled with fewer players in the campaign, Critical Role also announced in July that they would be appearing for the first time at New York Comic Con to do signings and meetups. Additionally, at the end of July, Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, an RPG adventure game, partnered with Critical Role, releasing a free DLC where people could play with members of Vox Machina in the game. On the 2nd of August, we received the official look at their new and current studio from Mauritia. On the 7th, Matthew rewarded fans with his second fireside chat where he answered their many questions due to the amount of money that the creator community had raised in support of 826LA, the charity that Critical Role had continuously supported since the very beginning. 3 days later, Critical Role released part 2 of Mauritius Bear-themed one-shot with Matthew, Liam, Taliesin, Sam, and Brian. Critical Role was serious about making more content for themselves and growing themselves as a brand, and that was evident by the amount of entertainment we got in such a short time. But hold on to your dice, because there is so much more. On August 22nd, Critical Role announced a completely new series, Handbooker Helper, a crash course series on all the Dungeons & Dragons basics you will need. This series went on to have over 40 episodes, releasing over the course of a year, and had all the cast members in it, along with other friends of the show, like Danny Carr, Brian Forrest, Will Friedle, Mary Elizabeth McGlenn, and so many more. The animation for this series was done by Wendy Sullivan Green, and the theme song was made by our very own Sam Riegel. This was the first of many new series to come from the group, and it gave them a fun way to help others learn about the game that they love so much. On the 28th of August, they came out with an announcement for their support with Pavlov, a charity foundation aimed to help fight childhood cancer. There were stretch goals set and met by the critter community, which led to the promise of a one-shot in the future ran by Sam. On August 31st, we got a werewolf one-shot from Liam with 2 guest stars, the first being Erica Luttrell, an actress known for many voices and roles from shows like Westworld, The Magic School Bus, and The Shining Time Station. Their other guest star was TJ Storm, an actor and stunt performer known for motion capture roles in Tron Legacy, Captain America Civil War, and Deadpool, as well as other acting and voice acting roles. Storm had been inducted into the Martial Arts Masters Hall of Fame 3 times, but he'd also been playing D&D for over 3 decades, and he was a great guest for this one-shot. Critical Role at this point was growing more and more independent, releasing another State of the Role, a video where they would update people on the current state of Critical Role, on September 10th that covered several announcements. Firstly, Critical Role's Twitch channel subscriptions had been officially set up so people can now support their group individually and get access to more VODs sooner. They also announced their next line of shows coming up, the first of which being Between the Sheets. This was an interview show hosted by Brian Foster that delved into the story of these storytellers. This would be a more intimate interview, with a lot more of the behind the scenes of these actors' lives. This show was planned to interview several different creators, but started with, of course, the cast of Critical Role. The group then announced All Work No Play, a video podcast reboot of sorts, of Sam and Liam's old audio podcast. In this podcast, they would talk about life and things going on, but would also go out and try something new that they had never done or tried before, usually bringing a friend with them. These announcements were followed with a live stream called Pub Crawl, where Tal, Marisha, Sam, and Liam played an indie brawler game Crawl while drinking and talking to celebrate the launch of their Twitch subscriptions. They also gave away 100 subscriptions during this event to their followers. These passionate people were on a mission, a sign of promise for what the future held for them as they released more and more content. Just 2 days later, they announced on their YouTube channel that not only would they be appearing in New York Comic Con, but they would also be playing an episode live, so critters of the New York City area could watch the group in person, and the hype was real. In addition to their regular streamed game and talk show every Thursday and Tuesday, fans received a teaser and the first episode of All Work No Play, 2 new hamburger helpers, a raccoon one-shot from Sam as a reward for the previously mentioned Pavlov charity fundraiser that they did in August, and the first episode of a new show, #EverythingIsContent, all within the month of September. As the name suggests, this new series was a catch-all umbrella platform for videos that didn't quite fit in Critical Role's regular programming, often consisting of the group playing board games or video games together. While they were creating an amount of content that was nearly impossible to keep up with, Critical Role also announced that they were going to be heading overseas to MCM Comic-Con London in October, allowing them to visit with their European critters for the first time ever. The group also shared some love for the Pacific Northwest, announcing that they would be attending the Emerald City Comic-Con in Seattle the following March. With a detailed show release schedule planned and a lineup of Comic-Cons on the way, Critical Role had set themselves up for a very busy next few months that seemed nearly impossible to keep up with. But if we have learned anything, it is that this group can seemingly do the impossible. The group kicked off their incredibly packed schedule with the New York Comic Con on October 4th, holding a live audience episode where, due to the current campaign circumstances, they all dressed in pirate-themed attire. During this live show, they also announced the current production of their next set of Vox Machina Origins comic books, scheduled to release in the summer of 2019. The live show was full of exciting twists and turns, and this was only the beginning of the group's trip here in New York City. They spent the rest of the weekend at the convention doing panels, meet and greets, and interviews, and boy were they blown away from the response that they got. October also brought us several more episodes of All Work No Play, Hamburger Helper, and Everything is Content. We also got a magic-based one-shot run by Laura on the 25th of October, taking place in the Fantasy School of Schmogwarts. It was a very enjoyable one-shot where the Harry Potter universe meets the Breakfast Club, as these magical students tried to escape detention. Leaving hardly any time to breathe, the group was in London just 3 weeks after New York Comic Con on October 27th and 28th. While they didn't host a live show, they met with countless fans and talked in multiple panels. There were so many fans wanting to see the group. The panel room filled quickly and fans wrapped around the space in a long line, hoping for the chance to meet the group. It was seemingly chaotic with the amount of fans gathered, but it was a great month for the critters who had waited to meet the group for so long. After an intense October filled with events, the group started November with a charitable announcement. The group had continuously voiced their support for 826LA, as well as other charities that they had begun to support. We saw support for Pavlov with Sam's fundraiser, and now the group voiced their support for Operation Supply Drop, or OSD, headed by the support from Travis. OSD is a foundation that delivers supply drops to US troops that have things to help boost morale and quality of life, like games and entertainment, as well as having services to help these troops transition back to everyday life with job trainings and other programs. So, for the month of November, Critical Role shot to raise $25,000 for the charity, and Travis would do a first-person shooter game livestream if they did reach that goal. And once again, the critters proved their devotion and made this goal become a reality, and the Black Ops 4 livestream was scheduled. On top of that, the second Chronicles of Exandria art book was released, available for pre-order on November 12th, with both a normal and deluxe version, much like their first art book. On the 23rd, we got Honey Heist 3, our third installment of Marisha's bear-themed one-shots, this time featuring a new cast of N.D. Stevenson, Mary Elizabeth McGlenn, Christina Ariel, Brittany Wallach-Key, Danny Carr, and Laura Bailey. The following Tuesday, the group released a fireside chat with Sam because of the goals that were hit with the Pavlov Foundation fundraiser. Much like Matthew's chats, Sam just sat and talked with the viewers, answering their many questions. Now, keep in mind that in addition to all of this and their November events, the group also released 2 new Hamburger Helpers, 4 episodes of Everything Is Content, and 3 episodes of All Work No Play, including the Season 1 Hot Tub Spectacular finale. To conclude November, several members of the group did an interview with Toxic Google on the 27th, where they discussed the growth of the game, their show, and their feelings on everything that they had experienced throughout this adventure. Even a company as huge as Google had seen the growth of Critical Role on YouTube and was drawn to them, curious about the story of their success, giving us a great interview with Travis, Matt, and Marisha. The group kickstarted the month of December with Pumat Week, a celebration of Matthew's NPC shopkeeper, Pumat Soul, created in the second campaign, who became a beloved character with his relaxed attitude and polite voice. Matthew had cosplayed as Pumat earlier that year in August at Gen Con, increasing Pumat's popularity with the critters. To celebrate Pumat Week, Critical Role released a new t-shirt with Pumat's shop name on it, The Invulnerable Vagrant. The group also released a new Pumat Twitch emote, a Pumat impression event on Twitter for the critters, and an Everything Is Content stream where Matthew and Taliesin played Fortnite with a new Pumat Killer Voices pack by Overwolf, where you could add Pumat's voice to games like League of Legends, PUBG, and Fortnite. That week's episode on December 6th featured Critical Role's brand new animated intro, which included moments from each of their characters' backstories and accompanied by their new theme song, Your Turn to Roll, with lyrics by Sam Riegel and sung by the cast of Critical Role, led mainly by Ashley and Laura. The idea came from Travis and Sam, after Sam came up with the jingle for D&D Beyond, which also became an animated short. The new theme song was composed by the very same Jason Charles Miller who had created their previous theme song, and the animation for the new intro was completed by Camille and Kevin Ariobagita, who had also helped create the previously mentioned D&D Beyond short. The new intro was a huge production and a massive step for the group, being one of the first animated sequences featuring their characters, which would lead to a later released behind-the-scenes video at the beginning of 2019, which we will dive into soon. On December 13th, Deborah Ann Wool, an American actress known for her roles in Marvel's Daredevil and HBO's True Blood, became the next guest star of the campaign. Deborah was once in a 4th edition D&D game with Matthew before the Vox Machina's home game had even started, and was even invited to play with them during the first campaign, but wasn't quite comfortable with playing live on a stream yet. So it was fun to finally see her join the group in this energetic episode. The group's chemistry with Deborah was clear, and she fit so naturally into the group as she played her skittish yet playful gnome, Twiggy. To finish off the year, we got the previously promised Black Ops 4 stream for OSD, where Travis and Brian played Call of Duty against each other for an hour, just messing around, delighting the critters that had worked to raise the money for the OSD charity. Following this, the last campaign episode of the year was held on December 20th, and was their 46th episode. Lastly, a special Nightmare Before Christmas themed one-shot was hosted by Liam towards the end of the month, which featured guest star Julie Nathanson, an American voice actress and writer with roles as Samantha Maxis in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Disney's Belle in several video games, and a plethora of other characters. The group decided to take a few weeks off for the holidays before they would start the campaign back up at the start of the new year, and they bid their fans a happy holiday season. But not before making a couple announcements, of course. First, Critical Role would be hosting their first ever art show at Nucleus Art Gallery in Alhambra, a suburb of LA, on January 18th. This show included art from artists around the world from the critter community that the cast had curated. The following day, the group would host their next live show, where the players would return as their old Vox Machina characters to play a one-shot live from the Ace Hotel in LA. This one-shot was known as The Search for Grog, where the group went to tie up some loose ends that were introduced at the end of the last campaign, due to some poor choices made by Grog in the last few moments of the campaign. Critical Role also announced that on January 3rd they would be doing a group rewatch of their show All Work No Play, as well as announcing a list of all new shows. These shows included Pub Draw, Main Drop, and the second season of Between the Sheets, all coming out at the start of the new year. And with that, 2018 comes to a close. A year of momentous growth, conventions, moving studios, numerous amounts of new content, as well as the promise of so much more in the works. The start of 2019 introduced the beginning of a new era for Critical Role, but we'll have to wait for that in the next episode. Thank you so much for the support that has been given for this series. You guys are wonderful. I'm so sorry this episode has taken a while to get out and that there wasn't more in it. As I got through 2018, my script had already gotten a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but I didn't want to cut any content out, so I decided to break it up. The next episode is already in the works, so it should be out soon, so stay tuned for that. If you'd like to stay in touch with me, you can join my Discord. That's a pretty easy way to get in contact with me. I also invite you to check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me and the work that I'm doing. Thank you again so much for all the support that you guys have given, and the next episode will be out soon, so hang tight, but until then, I will see you in the next one.